Welcome back, YouTubers. It's us, the British Fist,
Good Jane.
right here to give you our ROH, or the second ROH show review with me, Mr. Park, and this guy sitting next to me, it's NJ.
What's up?
What's up, NJ? What's up to you guys up there? Make sure you guys subscribe, of course, as usual. Like this video, as usual. And comment your thoughts on this show down below, if indeed you've seen it, as usual.
And please contact us in the links in the group box below.
Indeedly doodly doodly godly. Let's, So before we go into this show, NJ, I'd just like to ask you, what were your expectations going into this show, and how high or how low were they?
Well, as much as I want to be fair to Ring of Honor, it's just that after last week's show, when there was those video packages, the match is not getting the right length of time. I was kind of thinking, as their second one following on from that, there's not going to be much change or improvements. So I was expecting roughly the same thing.
I mean, since they tape those, improvements aren't going to be able to be made. I do hope they inject improvements into their next 4 sets of shows. I will say this though, as Ring of Honor is new on television, I'm always interested to see if they can offer us something different to what WWE and TNA offer us. And after last week, it didn't seem like they could give us that much different. They gave us great wrestling, but they gave us all these video packages and stuff. And although I was kind of a bit on a downer after that show, I still was interested to see what ROH could offer us this week, because we had a main event set, and I was really interested to see what they could do elsewhere in the show.
And it's always going to be the main event that obviously leaves you going happy or leaves you going unhappy because of how it flowed. No. So all we can say is, listen to the rest of this review and find out what we thought.
Definitely, right. So we opened up this week with a video package reminding us of last week's main event between World's Greatest Tag Team and Kings of Wrestling. This kind of helped the consistency flow on from the last show to this show. I expect that the same thing next week, but it did help. At least it helped go us from last week's show into this week's show in a short and to the point manner.
I agree, because the thing is, after the great video package of show last week, we needed that. Obviously, it helped me maybe understand what's happening next in this show. Yeah,
we had the announcement of the main event. This whole show, to me, seemed to be geared to the main event, especially with all the video packages we have in there. This whole show seemed to be, like I said, geared towards the main event, and after that, we had a in-ring segment with the World's Greatest Tag Team and Jim Cornette. Kind of flowed from last week. We have last week's winners in an in-ring segment on the opener, which is what you usually get on a WWE or TNA taping. They're talking about the Briscoes and everything. What did you think of this opening segment with the World's Greatest Tag Team? Well, Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team, as they're known now.
Well, with the Wrestling Great Tag Team, I think it was good because they had their say of how they felt about what happened at the last show.
Oh, no, the second to last show, because remember, this was done 6 weeks ago, wasn't it?
Well, yeah.
Because that's how ROH do things, brother.
Weird, but yeah, I think it was good to have them open, to have their say about what happened.
Yeah, like NJ said, they're talking about the Briscoes after their attack at Best in the World, even though the last pay-per-view, we had new number 1 contenders in the All Night Express, which I really think they should be hyping for, personally. This is the problem with taping these things 6 weeks before one of your pay-per-views, where, you know, the kind of lack of consistency there kind of showed throughout the show. It kind of teased the future tag team matches between them and the Briscoes, even though the Briscoes were supposed to be feuding with All Night Express, and All Night Express got a number 1 contendership, but it's a match I would like to see, don't get me wrong, with the tag team championships, even though Cornette doesn't want it to fucking happen, seemingly.
No, he was really against it, but eventually, when he spoke to them, they said that we'll have a match going later.
Yeah. So, good, made sense as an opening segment. It was decent. Wasn't as good as last week because we had Desmond Wolfe coming out, but still a decent opening segment in my opinion.
It was, yes.
Right, so then we get on to our first of 2 video packages of the evening. We had a video packaging which focused entirely on Mike the Prodigy Bennett, giving us information about his character, his heel character, and his trainer Brutal Bob. While I do like the fact that they're trying to give us some information on this guy's character leading on to the match he has next, it was too long.
That's one of the problems, because you have an opener that gets you kicking off, it gets you feeling, then it follows on to this long video package. Yes, it helped me get to know him, but I don't really need to know him for that length of time when we watch the show for wrestling. You
know, we do watch the show for wrestling. That's what ROH is generally better at, in a lot of people's opinion, and they're right to that opinion. It's just that if they're going to do this video package, why couldn't they have done something for Jimmy Jacobs or Steve Corino, the guys that they'll be facing in the next match? It seemed all focused on Mike Bennett, and I really think if you're going to have a match, you should have done what you did last week and focus on both the people in the match, so we can all buy into that. I mean, the newer guys won't know who Steve Corino and Jimmy Jacobs are. And die-hard Ring of Honor fans know that these guys are pretty much legends in Ring of Honor that have been in there for a long time. I don't understand why they couldn't get video package time.
Yeah, it's quite disappointing because obviously, if you're still new to this, the TV shows are meant to help you get to know each wrestler, their abilities, their skills, and what they're doing. But with this particular match, it just didn't give us it.
Yes, we're 5 minutes into the review, NJ, and we're Go to our first match.
Let's go.
Yes, right. So we got Mike Bennett versus Jimmy Jacobs with Steve Corino in his corner. This match went on for 6 minutes, so not as long as I expected, but the whole focus seemed to me, because that video package was on Mike Bennett, and you kind of knew he would win, didn't you? Really, this match.
I felt that, yeah.
It wasn't the best of match, but ROH marks will probably say, it wasn't a great match because it wasn't a spot fest. It wasn't, a technical style match, but Mike Bennett is something new in Ring of Honor. We don't see guys like Mike Bennett in Ring of Honor that much. The kind of more sports entertainer guy who's not all about high spots and stuff. That's the kind of variation ROH needs in some of their wrestlers and styles, really, isn't it? Sometimes
they do need variation because different fans like different things. It's good if they had variation, yes.
And Mike Bennett gets the win. I can't remember his finisher, the box or something like that. I think his finisher is called. So overall, it did a good job of putting Mike Bennett over. If they're going to push him in the future, I guess the match was not as good as last week's opener. Remind me, because that was a spot fest and that was awesome, but it's still decent opener, not great, but decent. I thought.
I give it the same. Yeah.
What do we have next then, Jay? We have the Inside ROH video package, the second video package of the evening, where we get a bit of information on why Eddie Edwards is called Die Hard Eddie Edwards, and we get information on how he got his nickname with his elbow injury. Which is all good, and it's all nice that we can buy into their characters. Eddie Edwards wasn't involved on this week's show, so I do question that. But why does it have to last this long again?
I know, it's good that we get to see Eddie Edwards and that, just so you get to know him and that. Obviously, after the first match we had, this kind of dragged on before we get to the main event.
It didn't help the fact that they also had a Davey Richards and Roderick Strong interview there. I think that should have been saved for next week's show. They've hyped it up for next week, but I really think things like that should have been saved for next week's show before the main event happened. And that didn't help the segment because it dragged it on more. And again, it's nice that we can buy into their feud, but I just think the video package is not short, and it's not short enough, and it's not concise enough for my match, especially seeing as the amount of time I think they could have dedicated elsewhere to other things in this show.
Sure, I give it that. It's just that obviously now we're going to get to the main event after the long video package,
and that long video package didn't include anyone in that main event, which was a little bit disappointing. I do feel when you have a main event like that, you should use video packages to help hype the main event, even though they've been hyping it since last week. A video package here, take some of the time out of the other video package. A video package here would have been nice, wouldn't it? I would have thought so.
I think get to know who these next wrestlers are in more detail than we already know.
Especially when they're wrestling for the TV championship, and this is the TV show.
Huge.
Just a point there. So main event, we had El Generico versus Jay Lethal in a TV championship match, a match which I feel should have happened at Death Before Dishonor 9, but instead we get it on free TV. Yay! WWE style booking for titles.
And the thing is, I do agree them having it here as well, because obviously they want to kick their show off. They do want it to be different. They do want the main event to have some speciality to it. I think having it for a championship does give us that feeling of positivity.
It did. And the match itself, I enjoyed the match. I expect these two to put on a great match, and I think this match would have been worthy for that pay-per-view. But I'm glad we got it as our main event on TV. As you say, for the newcomers coming in, they really need something to really kickstart the show, and this is the kind of thing they can use to do it. It was a good match. I enjoyed the match. There was a lot of decent spots in there. It lasted it got a time limit draw, so it lasted for 15 minutes, and I do question the whole time limit draw thing, but...
That's the thing. You flow from like WWE and TNA, and they have just straight up matches where they can just battle out until the other one can't compete anymore. When it comes to ROH, the time limit, I think it really drags out the ability of what the rest is going to do. They should just fought to the very end.
I will say this though, in counter to your point there, that matches on WWE Free TV don't usually last 15 minutes. Just a point.
No, I think this match could have gone on longer if there weren't that time limit thing. So that was kind of disappointing for a main event.
Exactly. But the thing is, although I don't like this time limit thing, when Jim Cornette comes out and announces 5 more minutes or fights to the end of the show, fuck, that got the fans pumped, didn't it, for that last 4 minutes of action?
It definitely got the crowd ready to see the last main event to find out who the overall winner was.
It was a good way of getting the fans pumped for the ending, and it really did work. Lethal and Jericho went at it, and Lethal wins and is our new TV champion to end the night. Personally, I think there should have been a little bit more spotlight on him winning the championship, but again, I'm pretty happy with this main event personally.
It rounded up the show quite nicely, yes.
Yeah. You also get an announcement that next week we're going to be getting Davey Richards versus Roderick Strong in an ROH World Championship match. So again, it's nice to see they're hyping their main event. for next week's show, as it gives us something to look forward to, doesn't it?
That's exactly what they did last week. They continued that and showing us the next match for next week, so I have to give it a thumbs up to that.
And even though I've seen this match various times, I'm still looking forward to it just to see what they give us on free TV. We know David Richards is going to win, but again, lack of consistency here maybe from ROH, but we'll go on to that more on our overall thoughts now. What are your overall thoughts on the show in general?
Like I said at the beginning of the video, because of how last week was, it weren't the best for me. It had long video packages and short, not good length matches. In my opinion, it could have gone longer, or even a third match would have been decent. So when it came to this week, I wasn't really expecting that much more improvement. But then again, I do say the matches were entertaining.
Yeah, pretty much like we said last week, wasn't it? They're always giving us entertaining matches in ROH. That's one good thing that you know they're going to get great matches. We moan at TNA all the time for their backstage segments and stuff. This, you know, the video packages, there was 2 of them tonight, and both of them really didn't help the flow of the show. They're needed in the show, but just not as long, and you could really devote time for those video packages to other things, in my opinion, on the show, and that would help the show so much to flow. Even have a third match like you suggested.
And this is what I'm going to say. Talk about video packages. Guys, check out the British Fist Facebook. You can find it on www.facebook.com/British Fist.
Yeah, because we're going to advertise our Twitter too, because it's twitter.com/British Fist. And our Skypes.
And we'll do that again if you need to. Yeah. But there you go.
So my overall thoughts on this show is it wasn't as good as last week. I do question the fact that they done it 6 weeks before, and it really doesn't help really doesn't help the consistency of the show. I'm looking more forward to the next 4 tapings, which will hopefully hype us into Glory by Honor 10, which will be the next pay-per-view. But this show, again, and I didn't feel it was as good as last week. It didn't flow as well as last week. The 2 video packages just went on for too long, and the matches were entertaining, but I didn't feel it was as good as last week. That's all I'll say.
True.
Okay, so you've heard our thoughts on the show. We want to hear your thoughts on the show, though. Get them in that comment section down there below if indeed you did see the show.
And that has been it from Mr. Parkin and MJ. That's left us to say one word: goodbye.